What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter. Footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over, 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm Emilie DeAngelo, the TV host of Balancing Your Life with TLBTV, also known as PH Healthy Girl. Today we are talking with Kim Berney. And Kim kind of just realized not too long ago that she plays so many roles, and one of the biggest roles that she plays is of a caregiver. And Kim had realized going along that, what am I going to do if I can't take care of people anymore? And she's played so many different roles that now she's taken her health more seriously with her realizations. So we're going to talk to Kim today, and she's just going to share some different things. How you doing, Kim?
Hey, doing great. Thank you for having me on, Emily. Good to be here.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So Kim, just describe the caregiving roles that you have come to realize that you've been playing now before your life.
Yeah, my life. Yeah, I have been in the caregiver role. I found myself in it several times in my life, and it wasn't where I imagined myself. Most people don't, but sometimes you are in them. And, you know, think about not just some of the things that I'll tell you about that I've done, but just most of us, most women are caregivers always, because we become moms, right? So we're caregivers by nature. I mean, it happens. So my background in caregiving, my first husband got ill after about the first 5 years we were married. And he was sick for another 14 years. And in fact, the last 5 years, he was pretty much bedridden. That is...
that's hard.
Yeah, that's hard. It takes a lot. And I found myself during that time, as I just became I took care of him. I took care of my daughter, and, you know, and everything going on in our lives. But I just started surviving. That's all I did. I didn't thrive. I didn't do things for myself. All I did was survive. I got up every day, did what I had to do, fell out of sleep at night, and just, you know, I was going through my life like that. And I did that for like the last 5 years before he passed away. And then after that, it was like my life was opened again. And some of the things that happened to me along the way, it happens to a lot of people that are caregivers. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But anyway, so I did that. And then a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now, my stepmom passed away suddenly, and my dad had Alzheimer's. He was in the late stages of Alzheimer's. So we didn't really have a lot of options. I was living in Florida, have a home in Pennsylvania, and my dad was in Texas, and he wasn't in a home. They were trying to get him in a home, but couldn't get him in a home. He was one of those people who had too much coming in from retirement, had too much money coming in, but not enough to be able to get into a home. It's a really odd situation that happens to a lot of people these days. People have no idea what's going on until they get into this parent situation where they're caregiving. So I put everything in storage and moved to Texas and took care of my dad for 1.5 years. He was really active. He was 85 years old, very, very active, had great body. Body was working fine, just fine. But his mind eventually, what happens when you have Alzheimer's, eventually your mind just shuts down. And so your body stops functioning because it doesn't know how anymore. And that's what finally happened to him. But until that, he was like a little 2-year-old, 24 hours a day. I mean, he rarely would stop. He would stop and sleep sometimes. And that caregiving was, it was kind of difficult. I'll put it that way. And anyone who's worked with someone with Alzheimer's and kept him at home, you find out it's very difficult. So my first husband that passed away, he stayed. In fact, the doctor said that he lived 10 years longer than they expected him to. And I actually had one of them tell me that it was because of the way that I took care of him. So I always feel honored in that. He stayed home until he died, and so did my dad. He was at home until he passed away. And then I had gotten married again after my first husband passed away. I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. And so we're the same age. He's a big, tall guy. You know, he's my strength. And my David, he's awesome. But in the past few years, his health has been declining. So now I'm finding myself in that caregiver role again. He's got a foot that's messed up. He's got Charcot foot, so he can't walk very well. He started going blind. We've done a lot of work on his eyes to get his sight back. So I'm in that caregiver role again. This has been going on for about a year and a half now. And it was funny because, Emily, when you called, you were saying, you're in that caregiver role again. Right?
Just when I was called you earlier, you know, I had to laugh to myself, everyone, because I pick up the phone, or I'm talking to her on the phone, and I hear she's helping her daughter, and she has all these puppies that she's out there walking. And she's like, let me call you back, you know, so we can talk. As I'm hanging up the phone, I'm laughing, and I'm thinking, how funny is this? Here she is. She's gone from 2-legged to 4-legged.
Yeah, I did.
You know what, Kim? You're describing so much about everyone's health and all the love you gave them, and, you know, you nurtured them, and it's a wonderful thing what you did, and, you know, hats off to you for that. But what about your health? Describe what was going on with your health that either you weren't paying attention to or ignoring, because if you're not around to help everybody and do this role that you took on, what happens to them if you're not healthy? And apparently, from what you're talking, you didn't consider your health. So what made you start thinking about it, and describe what was going on with you to start you bringing attention to it?
Well, when I was taking care of my first husband, I gained a lot of weight. I mean, I gained over 100 pounds over this period of time because of, and, you know, a lot of people probably know this, that, you know, stress will cause you to gain weight. Not necessarily because you eat a lot more, because I didn't necessarily eat a lot more, but once your fat cells start protecting, I mean, the fat hangs around your cells and it won't let go because of stress. Stress can cause you to gain weight just by stress alone. And I was in a very stressful situation. I worked full-time, took care of my husband full-time, had a teenage daughter, and I was finishing college at the same time. So I'm doing 4 years of college, taking care of a husband, working full-time, taking care of my daughter. And sometimes I also took on a part-time job because, you know, it costs a lot to take care of people. So I gained a lot of weight, and I got very unhealthy during that time. Well, it wasn't even that I was that unhealthy, but the stress, it starts getting to you, right? Your body starts, it affects you.
It comes back at you. It comes back at you when you don't take care of it right. I mean, you got to balance. You have to live the right way, or it's all going to go wrong. I know that. Believe me. I know that.
Yeah, you had a situation where you went through some major health challenges, and yet you were still a caregiver while you went through them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Kim, and even you're just saying that now, I didn't even consider that. You're right. I'm, you know, battling cancer, going through chemo radiation, and I'm still taking care of my son, getting a business going so I don't lose my home, because people just don't realize when you get hit with disease, what it's going to take from you. You just don't. You don't. And you got to balance. You got to consider yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. The cost of poor health in general, it's not only the cost that, you know, paying for doctors and the medication and paying your insurance and all those kinds of things that it zaps out of you, but also it takes your own physical energy. That there's so much of a cost of your own physical energy when you're not well, right? And so, you know, what can you do about that? I found it amazing when I found out about your product. I had heard about, checking your pH long time ago. And I had.
What did you hear about it? Tell me a little bit what you heard about it. Because I like for you to, as a person in this role, kind of describe, after you realize this, what you did for your health, or what other people can do, or what do you think is simple enough that people implement with where you're going now about the health. And I'm interested in knowing what you did know about the the low acid and that lifestyle.
Yeah, there was a book. I don't remember the name of the book, but many years ago, a long time ago, there was a book, and it was talking about being acid and alkaline, and that, you know, if you could balance your pH, that your body would be in a better state of health. I mean, that was the premise that I was following. And then I kind of did that for a while. I lost a lot of weight, got kind of in a much better, healthier situation, and I had a lot of fun. Started scuba diving, played around a lot, and I became healthier. But so I kind of, you know, I had done the testing and I understood it, but since I was doing pretty good, I quit. I didn't do it again. Then I got into caregiving with my dad, and I mean, I say this, and I'm not kidding when I say it almost killed me. Taking care of him, it just about killed me. My stress level was beyond, it was beyond anything I had experienced before, even though my first husband was, well, I was a lot younger. So now I'm in my 50s taking care of my dad. And then, you know, when you're in that stressful situation, you do things that aren't good for your body. Like I started drinking too much. You know, the only way I could escape from this thing I was having to do every day, it was to drink and go to sleep at night. You know, I drink a lot and then go to sleep. And that was, of course, just doing more and more bad things for me. And I wasn't sure if I was in, you know, I wasn't sure about my health after I got done. You know, when Dad finally passed away, I wasn't sure where I was anymore in my health. And I know I didn't feel that great. I didn't look good. I didn't feel good. And
Talking about stress, but you're also dealing with all of those feelings, you know, the sadness, the, you know, just you miss them, just the whole thing, and the departure of, and kind of in a way after, and I've done this with my father too. So I know where you're at with it, not as much as you did, but when they're gone, you're just not sure what to do with yourself, because your role has become that or of this. Even with your kids growing up, you see people like, okay, well, you know, what do I do with myself? Yeah. And but you're dealing with so many different emotions besides the stress, and now you're standing there with what's left, and what's left, you know, is almost half dead.
yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that a lot, but you're absolutely right. And you know, the not being able to do things, I think that also just kind of weighs on you, because when you have someone with Alzheimer's, you can't just go anywhere you want to go. You can't go take a walk, because they can't understand taking a walk. You know, when they're in the last stages, nothing makes sense to them anymore. So you can't leave. You know, it was very, very difficult for me to even get to the grocery store. That was kind of hard sometimes, because I tried to get sitters to come over and take care of him. He would lock them out of the house at 112-degree temperature. Oh yes, he did. Locked them out of the house, and they'd call me, and I'd be like, all right, I'm coming back. And yeah.
Did you even have cell phones then? I mean, was it cell phones? I mean, God, thank God for that.
Yeah, she had her cell phone in her pocket, thank goodness. And she called me, and, you know, I had to come back. And it was, so it's interesting when you're in that, because you just don't think about yourself and your own health. But if I would have known about what I've learned from you, if I'd have known about pH testing, I could have been monitoring myself, and I would have known to, you know, really step out and get help. I mean, I thought I was getting help. I tried to get sitters and things like that, but I didn't go to a lot of the resources I should have. There's a ton of resources out there. There's Alzheimer's groups that you can get into. You can, you know, talk with other people that are in the same situation. There's a lot of things you can do to make your situation better that I didn't do, because once I was in it, I went back into the survival mode, and I just did what I had to do every single day. And, you know, that's what happens, I think, is we don't think about stepping out and getting help or doing something different. And there's no way I was going to go to a doctor. Like, I was not going to see a doctor.
Well, and a lot of people are like that, because they're there caregiving, taking them all the time. But, you know, you brought up something interesting that I don't think people think of. As mommies and daddies and sons and daughters and husbands and wives, everybody plays a role of caregiver to some degree, and some more than others. and especially as a mommy. So more of on a happier note, what do you think people like mommies, you don't see that, like, oh, let me take care of the kids. This has got to be for the kids. That's going to be done for the kids. I don't really watch what I eat. I just eat off the kids' plates, and I'm just from this bread and this and that. And you know, and that's a happier time of being a caregiver, of course.
Yeah.
But
Right.
as you said, you know, again, you got to step back and remember me. And it's not a selfish thing.
No.
You're not going to be there to take care of it. And you are a role as a mom as well. So what do you think about that role? What should people do? I know the gyms now more than ever, like they have the, you know, like mommy and me's. They have, you know, inside the gyms themselves have just a little center where children can go while mommy works out or does a yoga class. But what do you think? Anything else? Any other ideas? Because I'd love to share that with people.
Well, I mean, that's actually a really good idea. And just, you know, stopping whatever it is that you're not doing. I mean, stop and assess your situation, assess your own self, because, and you said this, and it's so true. If you're not healthy, you're not going to be there to take care of all these people. And you know, that's so important, especially for moms and dads and, you know, the ones that are taking care of children. It is a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun, but finding things you can do together. I love the idea of going to a gym together and doing the mommy and me and the yoga classes together, and, you know, taking walks and just being active and doing things. But it's just as important to, you know, help watch your kids and what they put in their mouths, what they're eating, and you at the same time, is that, you know, get them on a healthy, you talk about it a lot, you know, I love your green shakes and stuff, and you've got videos where your son's making these drinks.
Yeah, my son, he's good with them, you know, and
really
I'm
good
so
with them.
blessed to have that. I try to teach him to be balanced, to, you know, to be balanced. And, you know, and I always tell him, he's like, oh, Mom, why do you do this? Sometimes, you know, I'm at school and they're eating different. I said, Rocco, I do this because I don't ever want to go back to where I was. And I never want to be a burden on you. I want to live to triple digits, and I want to enjoy every minute with you, my grandchildren, and maybe great-grandchildren. So I want to be a caregiver. I want to, you know, take care of my son, his grandchildren, and my grandchildren, but I want to be healthy doing it. I don't want to be like you got into such a state of survival, and it's just so important for people to not be in survival mode, to be healthy, to be balanced, to have that balancing act of life balanced.
Yeah.
I say that all the way, in baby steps. Do it. How do you eat an elephant? One step at a time, or one piece at a time.
So it brings me to a good place right here where we can tell people about this. So when I found out about your kit, I found out that you have this kit that you've put together where people can track their pH, because, you know, as you learned a long time ago from your dad, I've heard you tell a story that, you know, he used to check the pH in the fish's tank, right? And he said, what did he tell you? He said, if their pH is
about
good,
balance with the water. If the pH is good, the fishies don't get sick. And I was 8 years old when I heard that, and it sat back here. And then when I came upon my studies of learning, you know, dying is not an option for me, living's the only option. And I kept finding the honorable mentions. I pulled it together and said, you know what, I got to make this simpler. There's too much information that's too scientific. I got to pull it together in layman's terms. What did you think about the balancing act in the book? Because the kit, the strips come with the pH Healthy Download Lifestyle. What did you think about that, learning all the different things with the all the different categories that you can take a look at in your life to think about, again, balance? That's all I talk about, is balance, everybody, but it truly is. That's what it's about.
Yeah, the book was really helpful. So I got the kit, tested my pH. I was ecstatic to find out, you know, it was actually good that day. Now I've had days where it's not so good, and I can tell, you know, what's going on around me. Like maybe I didn't eat good or whatever. But the things that I found in the book that were so interesting, and this is what I'm saying, you know, if you're trying to take care of other people, it's time that you stop and take a moment and look at yourself. Inside your book, you talk about the different areas of your life to look at. And you say, you know, look at each one of these areas. And if you're out of balance in any one of these areas, like maybe you don't get enough exercise, or maybe you don't eat the right foods, or, you know, you're not having that spiritual time or the quiet time for yourself, then, you know, look at all those things. And then there, you put in some really good answers on how, like, say your pH isn't in balance. So what can you do about that? And you talk about looking at all the areas first, see if you're out of balance, work on putting more balance into that. But you also talk about different foods, right? So
Absolutely.
if
Yeah,
you're
the 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule all the way. And you can still enjoy yourself. I try to be, and I think you've learned this even yourself, replace things. I don't want to take away. I like to replace. And
Right.
replace it with other things, and you're still enjoying it. And again, that was the one thing that I had to learn along the way, how to use more like spices and flavors, because I wasn't really after the food itself. I was either after the texture or a flavor.
Yeah.
And that I learned that. It was an awakening to learn that about myself. And I find that even with the boys, if it's like different salads and things like that, if I can add just a little taste, that's what they're after. So my son, you know, he has no choice, but he does choose it. I see even outside that he chooses being that way and being balanced. But so tell me about now, how about your husband? How have you been able to, I know you're caregiving for him now, and he's getting better because of all the love that you give him, and you're sensational with that, truly. Have you been able to teach him anything where you see him maybe changing his mind? Because I think it's really important that when we're doing things ourselves, we can't make anybody do anything. We give people information, and information is so important. Do you see him doing anything, or does he just think you're crazy and nothing's going to make anything better?
No, he actually is very encouraging too. For me, in what I do, he eats a little differently than I do. Because he is diabetic. It happened when he had a ruptured appendix back in '93. He came out of the hospital with flesh-eating bacteria and diabetes. So it was, you know, people think diabetes happens because of, you know, what you've always eaten or whatever. That's not always true. I didn't know this, but it can be triggered. It can happen.
Can be triggered by trauma? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something that goes on like
Wow.
inside his body, because his appendix ruptured, so they had to fix that. But the person before him had flesh-eating bacteria, and they didn't clean up the operating room well enough, and so he got it, and then the person after him got it. But his was internal. So, you know, if you remember back when they first started talking about that flesh-eating bacteria, and, you know, if you got a cut on your arm, you could lose your whole arm. Could you imagine it being inside? So there was
No, not at all.
Do what?
I couldn't imagine that at all.
No, I know. Most people can't. So
That's
you
scary. It's so scary.
It is scary. And it happens. It happens. And people, you know, it's just one of those things that happens. And so he's had to learn how to do things differently. He has to eat a lot more protein than I do. I don't like meats. I do nuts and things like that mostly. I eat a little bit of meat, but not a lot. I'm not a big meat eater. The other hand, he has to eat a lot more protein. But, you know, some of the things you talk about in your book, you have a copy of your book. Can you show your book?
No, actually, I don't. But thank you. I know I should, but I wanted to. You bring such a magnificent hat to the table where people don't get what they are. And I really, when you were always talking about taking care of this and that, and you recognize yourself as such a caregiver throughout your life, I thought to myself, people don't look at themselves like that. And I really wanted you, because you're intense and and yeah, but you're loving, you're so loving. And most people in this role are. And I thought to myself, God, people have, again, got to learn that balance in their role. What tips do you have? What tips do you have for people to balance themselves all around? What do you think were the easiest things? Because it's always easier said than done. It's always easier said than done.
Definitely first, test yourself. Test your pH, because that'll tell you if you're seriously in trouble and you got your own medical problems that you need to go deal with quickly, or whether you're okay, a little bit out of balance, need to shift it from being acidic over into, more alkaline, and, you need to make that happen. I think that's really important because it's a measurement, Emily. That was why I was so excited when I learned about your kit and I got it, because it was a way for me to measure. I still today do not like going to the doctors for me. I just don't. I don't want to go to the doctor. I take my husband, I've taken my first husband, I take my dad. I don't want to take myself to the doctor, but I do want to know if I'm healthy. And I need to know from the inside. I can look at my outside and go, okay, I'm a bit overweight here. I need to lose some weight, or, my legs work fine. My arms are fine. I can lift a lot. My back's good. But that doesn't really tell me for sure. Am I okay inside? Is my body actually really okay? Is it good? Without having to go get blood tests done all the time. You need to do it at least once a year. I mean, you really do. Just go get them checked, get everything checked, just to check and make sure you're okay. But after that, find a way to measure yourself. So I like what you've got with that, testing the pH. It helps. And then if you are out of balance, you're acidic, you're too acidic, or even too alkaline. I mean, that can happen too. It's odd, but it can happen.
Yes.
What do? Start eating differently. Now, you asked if things changed for David. They did change for David, because even though he has to have a lot of protein, I don't. In your book, there was the food combining part where it says, if you're going to eat proteins, you eat greens. So now, like, whenever I make him steak or something like that, I put greens for it. I put greens with it, and I don't make him. I don't mix up all the food. Like, I always thought hamburgers were awesome, right? But it's putting all the wrong things together. So now I don't do that. I make things differently. He might have a hamburger patty, but he's going to have lettuce with it, but not necessarily the other things, and definitely no bun. So yeah, he's changed that a bit. But I do the same thing too. Now I watch what I eat differently. And I try to, I learned really quick that doing what everybody else does doesn't work for you to become healthy. So, if everybody around you drinks Cokes, don't do it. One of the best things I learned was the reason why my heel, my ankle, and my legs were absolutely in severe pain was because I was using like Pepsi as an energy boost while I was down there taking care of my dad. I would drink a Pepsi, and I usually wasn't a big Coke drinker or Pepsi drinker. And I did it there because it was hot. It was in Texas, and I was moving furniture and stuff. And so I just kept drinking a lot more Pepsis. And I found out that is the reason I was in so much pain, not because I was lifting furniture or moving heavy boxes.
Yes, inflammation.
Exactly. And I don't think people know that. I don't think people understand that carbonation, and that the carbonation, not only the sugar and high fructose, all that kind of stuff. I mean, all that's bad. We know that. But the carbonation that's inside the, sodas, it really does kill you, right? so just stop.
I agree. I agree with that. So here you are with all these aches and pains trying to take care of someone else.
Yeah, right. It's true.
Hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
so
hard.
You start changing. You just change your mindset. You decide that it's almost like you have to decide that you matter. Like, I have to tell myself I matter. Me being here matters. So
Yes,
I need to start doing it differently. And letting go. I learned some techniques too that were, I love them now because I learned how to breathe. You talk about breathing, right?
Yes.
There are ways to breathe that help to relieve stress. As you breathe in and out, you can breathe in clean air and let out stress. There's tons. I think you've got some good blog posts on that. There's some really good articles.
I have a couple on phhealthy.com that have some really good blog articles too. And I was hoping, Kim, that you could join us and maybe with these caregivers when people start getting that going, maybe you could do your own little blogging
I'll throw a few blogs in there.
Yeah, I think you would really be good for that. I think I know you wear a lot of hats, but I think people need to hear from you. So maybe maybe
Thank
we
you.
get you to write a book, and I'll help you with that.
Yeah, I am going to write a book. I really do. I think writing a book is something that, even if you never publish it, but writing a book, if you're in the experience, that also can be very cleansing to just put it on paper.
Hey, you've got a lot. You've got a lot to tell.
Yeah.
So listen, we do it. Like to have everybody give a tip of the week here at Balancing Your Life, a balancing act of life. So what do you think your best tip for this week for people could be? Outside of everything you've said, what do you really think there's one thing that you try to hold on for yourself to balance yourself that you could share with others that may or may not be simple, doesn't have to be simple, just something that touches you?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'll give you the tip, but I'm going to remind people to find out where they are health-wise. Simple test, get the pH test, and do that. And do it every day so that you can watch yourself, because that week, every day when you wake up and you do that, you're doing something for yourself, right? So do something for yourself every day. Maybe that's my tip. And maybe that is actually the best way to do it. So you got to do something for yourself. If they start out every single day testing their pH, they're doing something for themselves, right?
Oh,
You're looking in the mirror, you go to the bathroom, you test yourself, you dip that stick and look at it and you see where you are. And that's going to trigger you to do whatever is necessary next, right? To take care of yourself. So if it is balanced, yay, you get to high five yourself in the mirror or clap something and jump up and down, be happy. Then if it's not, then you don't get scared, you don't get worried. You say, okay, what do I do next, right? You got great tips. Is it, do I need to take a walk and get outside more and breathe in the air? Do I need to eat differently today? Do I need to drink a lot more water? Because water is awesome.
Yes.
There's a little lemon in it. A little lemon in there helps, right? That's one of the things.
I love lemon water. You know that. Lemon and lime. I'm loving it.
I used to go out to
I'd
eat.
be drinking a margarita, but that's too acidy, so I'll stick with the lemon and lime water.
Yeah, you did that one good. And that's one of the things I started doing. I didn't start until I watched you. When you go out to eat, you're asked, they ask you, do you want lemon in your water? And I used to always say no. Now I say yes.
Bring it on. Come on, give me that lemon.
Put lemon in my water. So do something for yourself every single day. And like I said, that's a good way to start, in my opinion, because it makes you focus on yourself for that first moment. When you're first getting up, you're going to focus on yourself. And it would remind you, I think, throughout the day to stay focused on yourself. Yep. And the other thing, too, I'll tell you, though, I'm not going to say this as another tip. That was my tip. My tip is do something for yourself every day. Dipper stick. Dipper stick is a good tip.
Everybody, you clear on that? This is not her tip.
So the other thing I was going to say is taking some time to be spiritual. For me, that means praying to God every day, talking to Him, asking for His help, telling Him thank you. That's what I need, and I think that is you kind of forget. I forgot. I forgot.
I'm going to ask you that. Did you find that you got yourself getting away from that because you were so focused on, I got to do this.
Yep.
I think,
yeah. And I didn't miss church. I always went to. In fact, my dad loved church. It was one thing he could do. He could go to church. So I didn't miss church. But doing it once a week is not enough. It's not enough to satisfy the spiritual hunger that that we have. It wasn't for me anyway. So that was one. I just had to say that one because that one makes a huge difference in my life. And when I forget, you get in there and you're taking care of everybody else, and even mommies and daddies, and sometimes you forget there's help out there.
it is. It's just
not hard.
Look up away. Just look up. Here, take it. I don't want it no more.
I can't take this anymore, but you can, so help me. So that's it.
Amen. Amen. Kim, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your caregiving moments and tips and really giving everybody something to think about. Now, A Balancing Active Life has a Facebook page, and if anybody wants to speak with Kim, I will have her get in touch with you if you need some extra tips or anything, because that's what, as you can see, she's a caregiver, but she would help you along. And then hopefully we'll be seeing more of her blogging to, really get people to think about taking care of themselves in this role. So thank you for coming to Balancing Active Life and seeing us, and just keep on coming back, because we're going to have experts after experts helping you get your life balanced, get yourself out of low acid into health and happiness. PH Girl here. Thanks for coming. Talk to you later.
Bye.